Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 175.
Very recently, somewhat related, somewhat unrelated, I was visiting, a recital for my daughter's performance, at a senior center, and there the Wi-Fi was open. Why? Because seniors, it's they're not going to fiddle around with 802.1x authentication. They just, in the time that they grew up, they just want something to work. So the point there is simplicity is key.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Anil, thank you for being here, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you, Matthew?
I'm doing well. Thank you. So tell us a little bit, introduce yourself, where you're at, and kind of what you do in the Wi-Fi space.
So I'm currently at Wyebot. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Wyebot, which is a startup company based out in the Boston area. We started it about 3 years ago, myself along with Roger Sands, who's the CEO, and we've been working together in the Wi-Fi area for together for almost 15 years. And
wow,
we worked actually at multiple wireless companies before this, Colubris Networks, HP, and then we later on acquired Aruba over there. And it's basically during that journey we saw many things, across Wi-Fi, and we thought that we could probably do something better and fill a gap in the industry. And that's what gave us the idea to start Wyebot, and here we are.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely want to get into that a little bit more, but tell us a little bit about your journey up to there. What led you and interested you in wireless LAN industries, Wi-Fi, IT, I guess, in general?
Sure. So my journey with Wi-Fi actually started, I would say, more around 2002-3 timeframe, when .11 was really nascent. We were talking about 11B, and Proxim Wi-Fi, used to be the leader at the time, and then came Atheros and all of that. So, I was working for some company here which would provide which was making wireless access points for many different manufacturers. We are an OEM. We were an OEM provider. Acton Technologies used to provide to many different AP vendors, and that's where my journey started. And moved on to Colubris Networks after that, which was a startup company, and then later on got acquired by HP. Spent several years at HP. So I've been primarily in software development, side. I wrote a lot of wireless driver code, and that's where kind of my passion with Wi-Fi developed.
So it sounds not just like this latest one, but you've been in at least a couple startups. What is that like? What is that experience?
I think I love the startup experience. Anybody that asks me, I would, like, my daughter is currently in college. I tell her you should definitely experience both sides of the world. Startup has its own interesting things, dynamic small teams, and you get to work closely with each other, whereas large companies, they teach you other stuff, processes, sometimes those are difficult ones, and how to encounter them. There's a good and bad about that. And it does give you, global exposure at larger companies. So when we're at HP, certainly, get to travel around the world, meet customers, and different regions have different kinds of requirements. So both have different, values that one, it adds to your overall experience.
What's happening in the industry that excites you these days with either the protocols or just kind of the trends that you're seeing?
So both, I would say. Protocols, of course, since I've been there, since the 11B days, B, A, G, N, AC, Wave 1, Wave 2, AX now, and keep going, forever, the alphabet soup, and of course the Wi-Fi Alliance now trying to simplify that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But that and the IoT is the other thing, the thing there is, like when I talk to my kids, they don't even know what the wire is. They just haven't seen that. Like they're working with their laptops, with their iPads, Chromebooks, whatnot. That's all Wi-Fi, and they just expect it to work. And now everything else is getting Wi-Fi, from dashboard, dash buttons to our thermostats, and I've heard door locks, solar panels. So it's great that it's getting everywhere. Good for us, keeps us in business. And it's complex. it's complex. There is, that is one thing that is definitely out there in the industry. There are great certification programs around, but the expertise is thin. We know, if you look at the number of CWNEs, I haven't looked at the latest count, but I think of the last time I looked at, there was some 300 odd in the US, and 500 globally. So definitely room for some kind of machine to jump in. And what I mean by that is some kind of artificial intelligence to jump in and fill the void over there.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit let's bridge into that then. So talk about what you guys developed, your company, and kind of what's going on there.
Absolutely. So this started, so my role, like I was in core software development, then I did some time, like technical product management kind of role, where I was interacting indirectly with the pre-sales engineers. Then I myself actually jumped into the field for a couple of years. And that's where I more closely felt that multiple things which we all know about Wi-Fi complex, evolving, number of devices coming in, wireless driver issues. So when we would sell something to a customer, after that, if they run into any kind of issue, you'd get the call again, and the partner, whosoever, no knock on anybody, but like if there's no money involved, partner says, okay, I'll see you next year, when you got more gear to buy. So, and most consumers, meaning when I say consumers, meaning customers who are consuming the Wi-Fi product, they, unless it's your day in day out job, you're not going to be able to keep up. If you tell me, can I be a heart surgeon and I know every bits and piece of that, that's not what I'm trained for, so I cannot keep up with that. I'll know basic stuff. So even basic configuration stuff, if your customer can learn that, great. You've probably gone over 50% of the hump, whereas very few people will have. And if you look at the IT staff, it's thin, they are doing multiple jobs, the expertise is low, unless and then add to that all the other things, which is evolving standards. Maybe 20 years from now, like wired has now become, right, and is but wireless, the environment stays dynamic. So all of those combined together required manual intervention. What that meant was, I, as an engineer, as an expert, would go on site with my bag of tools, take some Wireshark, OmniPeak, tools, do some spectrum analysis, with the tool sets that you have, and then go dig through the wireless traces to figure out what was wrong, and kind of come to from so we, working as an AP vendor, the goal generally was, oh no, it's your client, so resolve the finger pointing, essentially, right? No, it's the AP, no, it's the client, no, it's the wireless driver, no, it's the environment, right? So all of those multitude of problems, which are all dynamic, what happens today is not necessarily that's going to happen tomorrow, combined with the lack of expertise, is what led us to say, can we do something which can automatically do all of this? Because so what we ended up developing, so that was the original idea. We saw that there is certainly a gap, there's a void, right? Can we, so we had that high level idea in our mind. We set off, myself and Roger started in a, with another gentleman, with three of us, we started the company in an attic, Roger's attic, and here we are 3 years later. So we've developed like a sensor, basically a hardware sensor platform, which is multiple Wi-Fi radios. It captures the data, and the secret sauce is it captures all the time, analyzes that on the sensor itself, then sends very little amount of data to the cloud, where we do run our algorithms on that using device profiling, behavioral fingerprinting, and all of that. And then using AI engine in the cloud, we basically analyze that. So what I would otherwise have done, gone on site, collect data, come back home, look at that data, that all we have automated now. With this solution of ours, it's automated. It tells you, so we basically find out what is the problem that is in the network, and then we come up with a recommended solution to that. And we've tried to keep that. One other aspect that we learned as part of the journey when I was out in the field was that things cannot be too complex. All AP vendors offer great solutions. No knock against any one vendor. Even general Wi-Fi has its own set of issues. That's different, but the solutions are complex, right? I myself have gone through multiple 40-hour trainings for, learning a specific vendor's products, right? And it's because those are meant for engineers. If you look at end users, they just want, like, if you hand over something, very recently, I mean, somewhat related, somewhat unrelated, I was visiting, a recital for my daughter's performance, at a senior center, and there the Wi-Fi was open. Why? Because seniors, it's they're not going to fiddle around with 802.1x authentication. They just, in the time that they grew up, they just want something to work. So the point there is simplicity is key. And that's what we really focused on when we built our solution. We said it has to be freaking simple. And honestly, it is, you simply plug in the cable and that is it. There is zero configuration. There is nothing to be done at all.
The company's name is what?
Wyebot. So actually that's another, since you asked that, how that name came about is also interesting. So the W of the company comes from wireless.
Okay.
The YE comes from the I, EYEI, our eye, the eye that we look through.
Okay.
And bot is a robot. So it's a wireless and an eye and a robot. So it is something bot, it's a machine. It can look remotely and it looks at Wi-Fi stuff. That's how Wyebot.
Does it learn more as it's plugged into a particular network?
Absolutely. So actually the solution consists of kind of three pillars or three components. The first is what we call as autonomic Wi-Fi. Autonomic essentially means capture, self-analyze, and then correct. So we come up with actionable intelligence, based upon automatic capture, automatic analysis 24/7. So that's part one, autonomic Wi-Fi. Part two, which I call the easy part, but it is valuable. There are numerous other vendors doing that as well. And we added that because it was super easy for us to add that, is synthetic testing or remote network test or network test, whatever name you want to give it, essentially acting as a Wi-Fi client. So our sensor has multiple Wi-Fi radios. One of the radios is capable of acting as a Wi-Fi client and connecting to the network and then running tests against your own network. And we can run a range of network tests, from basic ping test, device discovery, connectivity test, speed test, iPerf test, you name it, application testing, a whole bunch of testing we can do. And we break down step by step, everything, how long connection took, DHCP retrieval, DNS resolution time, captive portal time, where it failed, what did not go through. You can set up email alert notifications and stuff, and basically, so something to proactively monitor the Wi-Fi network. So autonomic Wi-Fi, first pillar. Second pillar, remote network testing. And then the third pillar is what we call as client device forensics. That is a new capability that we just added. And that, what it does is also came back from real customer feedback. How many times have you heard from, like if you are the IT administrator, you are walking down the hallway and so if it's a campus and somebody says, oh, yesterday I was in that meeting room, and my call dropped, or like if it's a school, the teacher says, yesterday I was teaching, 5 of the students were not able to connect. Now the challenge with Wi-Fi, I go there today, everything is working.
It's fine.
It's fine, right? So we said we have to be able to resolve that. And that's what we basically, because we are a passive solution, meaning we are a recorder, like a DVR for Wi-Fi in a sense, we are recording all the data 24/7, and we have the ability to go back in time. So you can actually, in our solution now with this client forensics, you can click on any client and say, tell me what happened with this guy yesterday at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? And that is really very powerful for an IT administrator. And you can go back. So that completes kind of, the autonomic Wi-Fi, which analyzes your overall system. And and many times people ask, why can you not do that within an access point? So there are physical limitations within an access point, because when you're transmitting, you cannot be receiving at the same time. So you need to have a dedicated sensor device, and which is purely, capturing all the time. And it needs to be reasonably isolated at a dB level, from the access point, because in the access point, the radios are within 2 to 5 inches away, and you cannot get that kind of isolation very easily. And that is the reason if you have a sensor device, which is physically away, generally like 3 to 6 feet away, if you put the sensor away from the AP, then, you're not the access mode is not kind of overpowering the sensor radio, and you can capture all of the data.
Are you recommending, is there one sensor? Is there multiple throughout a network?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I mean, and that, so there are multiple throughout the network. And if you look at a enterprise like a deployment, a university campus, then having 2,000 sensors for 2,000 APs doesn't make sense. But where it makes, you can, in those environments, you can do more like a critical areas coverage. Where it makes a lot more sense is what I call as the distributed offices or the distributed enterprise. So for example, if you look at something like a Home Depot, right? I mean, they have close to 2,000 Home Depots across the country. So you cannot afford to have an IT staff at each Home Depot location, or a Bank of America, right? Or any of these small office locations, which are where you cannot afford to, anywhere where you have 15 to 30 or 50 people, you cannot afford to have a IT team or a strong IT team to that matter. When I say strong, meaning strong in terms of Wi-Fi, right? And we know the expertise is already thin. So that's where you really want the 24/7 nature, the remote capability, and something. Essentially, what I look at it is the Wyebot solution is like an engineer in a box. It's many years of experience that we have put it into the AI engine. It collects the data, something that an engineer would do, going on site. It does it automatically within 5 minutes. You can get to know what the environment looks like, what is happening, not just what is by the AP vendor that the specific customer is using. So imagine if you're in a shopping mall, Panera Bread and Starbucks are located right next to each other, right? Now, and you are a Panera Bread, you cannot be looking at just the Panera Bread only, because Starbucks right next door may be using similar channels is affecting, right? And that's where really a sensor-based solution, I mean, the thing is, can you get all of that within the AP itself? Maybe someday, we could get 6 radio access points and get all that isolation. That's not where we are today. And that's why, we feel that it fills a void, a gap in the industry, having this AI-based solution.
So what's been the feedback of some of the installations, and what type of installations are you already seeing happen?
The feedback has been excellent. We, whosoever gets to see our solution, they like the solution, love the solution a lot, because as I said, it's very, very simple to use. Simply plug it in, PoE powered, and off you go. You just log onto a website and it's collecting data for you and telling you what's wrong. So the feedback from customers have been excellent. They love the solution. Now we just going across the industry, across the market, gathering market share.
What's the answer to the security questions about what kind of data you're gathering and how you're using that data?
Excellent question. Yes. So 2 answers to that. One, when we collect data at the sensor, we actually drop the payload, the data payload. We primarily, keep the headers, and that is what gets sent to the cloud. So that's aspect 1. The second aspect is whatever does get sent to the cloud is actually sent via a secure TLS tunnel. So we actually use an industry standard IoT protocol, which is MQTT, and we use the TLS version of that. So A, we drop the payload. B, whatever is left, we send it over a secure TLS tunnel to the cloud, which is where the cloud engine then processes, the rest of the data and runs. So we call them signatures, so we have just like, so our solution is very similar to like not an antivirus, logically speaking, in that sense that, it is looking for those patterns and then and we keep on developing new signatures for that. As we see more things, we keep adding more signatures to the solution.
Is this sensor recommended on the ceiling, on the walls, on a rack? How are you guys typically setting it up?
Yes. So generally, if somebody asks us, okay, how many sensors do you need, or how would you mount them? Generally we say that you can mount it within, as I said earlier, 3 to 6 feet of the access point. But there are also scenarios where people want to say, can I troubleshoot a specific client? So recently we had a school district that was having trouble with a specific smart TV. When I say smart TV, it's not the standard Samsung smart TV. It's one of those special, $10,000 smart TV, which is like touchscreen and all of that. And the teachers use that in the classroom. and they were having issues with that. So they actually put the sensor right next to the TV as opposed to right next to the access point, because they wanted to make sure that we capture all of the data from the from the TV for sure, right? As much as actually we would have captured still, but so many times it's also easier for them. So sometimes when you're looking at hotels or even enterprises, people, especially when they are doing a trial, we don't ask them necessarily to put it right next to this. Some of them do, some of them are not. Even if you put them on the desk somewhere, I mean, it is enough to show the power of the solution.
How much interference does the sensor itself cause into the RF environment?
Zero interference. Okay. So out of the box, when we ship out a sensor, it is 100% passive device. It does not send any traffic out. As a matter of fact, there are 3 Wi-Fi radios on the sensor. 2 of them they are not even certified to transmit. So that's another, thing to say, that they will never transmit. The 3rd radio is allowed to transmit, but out of the box, it does not. And that 3rd radio is actually a multi-personality radio. And what I mean by that is, if you don't make any change, it's a passive sniffer capture radio only. Okay. Otherwise, it actually has the ability. The second personality of that radio is that it can be used to run the synthetic network test that I talked about, meaning it can connect to your Wi-Fi network and then run the test. And then the 3rd option for that radio is that you can actually use it. So our solution is cloud-based, so it needs connectivity to the cloud. So the sensor only has like one Ethernet port in that, PoE port. By default, most everybody would connect using that one. However, the sensor does have the ability to connect back to the cloud using the Wi-Fi interface as well. So that 3rd radio can A, capture, B, run synthetic test, or C, use as a backhaul for internet connectivity to the cloud. So out of the box, it's 100% passive unless you go and configure the tests. The only thing that we do require somebody to configure on the sensor is that we cannot guess your passwords, and we figure out all of your SSIDs. We even figure out, even if you're on a heavy dense environment, we figure out what are yours. Very, very heavy emphasis on plug and play and ease of use. So minimal configuration is, you tell us the username, password, if 1x or whatever, or the pre-shared key or whatever, and that's all. And then after that, you set up the tests, that you want, and then it'll become active. Otherwise, it doesn't generate any traffic in your Wi-Fi network at all.
And what's the size, the actual form factor of the?
It pretty much looks like an access point.
For sure. And then what's your guys' economic model?
So we are a subscription-based model. Essentially, standard 1 year, 3 year, 5 year subscription packs, and they basically, the sensor is included in as part of the subscription. We do not sell the sensor separately. So this annual subscription cost includes the sensor. We've tried to, again, simplicity, really, really, we don't want the customer to be bogged down by this, by that, there's one part number, that's it.
So how are you, with AI developing at its rapid rate, ready to take over the world?
Yeah.
How are you guys staying on the front of that? And what are the continual upgrades and updates that are kind of in front of you?
Yes, absolutely. So we run our cloud in Amazon Cloud. Right now we haven't started using Amazon's AI engine yet, but we are definitely poised for that, because we are, as I said, hosted on Amazon Cloud, and our database and everything, we can switch over to public cloud. We are currently public cloud, but the whole architecture is designed such that we can add actually other technologies. We can adopt, go towards using anybody else's AI engine as well. So we'll be later on looking at, we are looking at 11AX already right now, and if we need to add, for example, 4G, 5G kind of capability, the architecture is designed such that it can basically work with any kind of, wireless technology for that matter. We focused on Wi-Fi right now.
Wonderful. So what's kind of the next 6, 7 months, 12 months looking for you guys, and kind of your game plan?
Well, we are definitely, continuing to enhance the solution in terms of, so we have a lot of things we can add, but one thing always staying driven from our ease of use and simplicity thing is we collect so much data, but we want to show primarily meaningful data on the cloud, not just data for the sake of data. So that's where, many times when we talk to engineers or the likes of the CWNEs, they will say, show me this, show me that, show me a spectral graph. We deliberately haven't shown any of that, even though we have spectrum analysis capability on the sensor. We have Bluetooth on the sensor, but we don't want to show data for the sake of showing data. Our focus is, the IT folks are so busy these days, they just want to find out what is the problem, what do I need to just tune or fix, and then move on to the next thing, right? So we have really, as we gain feedback from customers, we are deciding, okay, should we have like an advanced something, advanced mode whereby we can show some of the data, but still maintain the ease of use of the entire solution.
So making the IT and network administrators' life easier, and then companies that need to deploy, especially multiple locations, and just trying to make their life as easy and give as much as accurate as possible feedback on what's actually happening on their networks.
A lot of our customers have told us, that this is the first thing that is giving me English language problems, literally. You look at that, we tell you, here's, we found this, and you go do that, like literally it's that simple, to look at. And that's what we can give them all the gory details, this where the association request happened, this element wasn't turned on. We know, I've been living that. I enjoy that still, that's what has kept me in Wi-Fi for that many years, I still love it. And looking through PCAP traces, all day long. But that's not what customers want to see, we as engineers are geeks, and would love to do that.
Yeah, but this is the device for the other guys.
Device for the other guys, yes. Developed by the geeks.
I guess engineers can also, engineers can also enjoy it. Very cool. Well, thank you so much. So someone obviously is super excited about hearing all of this, and they want to jump on board. What's their next steps?
They just contact us, go to our website, and you just fill out you just send an email to info@wyebot.com, and we'll get in touch with you.
Very cool. And just if someone wants to follow you, is there Twitter, or they want to talk more about this?
Yes. So we do have a Twitter handle, Wyebot Inc.
Wonderful. Well, Anil, thank you so much for spending time and kind of telling us about this, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Take care.
10 Talks.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Devin Barger. I do work for Cisco Meraki. I want to talk today about next generation troubleshooting. And what I'm referring to by next generation is really Wi-Fi has evolved to the point where it is the primary means of connectivity in the workplace. Employees, guests, BYOD, all these devices are expected to connect. But we're now also expecting to connect the mission-critical infrastructure of a company's day-to-day business as well to the Wi-Fi, the point-of-sale systems, for example. So you have the means of connectivity, but now you also have all these other use cases that customers are trying to use the wireless network for, right? User engagement, location, marketing campaigns, analytics. So us as wireless professionals, we need to be fully cognizant of all these different use cases, the solutions that are available to us to try and maintain and support these use cases as well. So it's all about having the right tool for the job. Every vendor is going to have their management system, every vendor is going to have their troubleshooting tools, but really we need something that's going to be flexible. Having these different customer use cases that can have these different results for customers and give them different uses of the wireless infrastructure. And as a wireless professional trying to support, you have to have different tools in the toolkit to be able to support them, and you got to be able to do it at scale, right? So if I have APs, clients growing quickly, going through event log file by event log file, clicking on different pages, opening up different browser windows, running different show commands and debug commands, trying to find essentially my needle in a haystack that's causing problems, it's very likely that I've been staring at my computer screen for 8 hours and I'm going to miss it, right? I'm not going to find the root cause of my issue. So we need to find ways to then let the data do the talking for us, visualize it out, have my graphs, my trending, my anomaly detection alert me when these anomalies are exceeding thresholds, and have that flexibility to be able to apply it to regardless of the wireless vendor solution, regardless of the customer use case, right? My retail shop is going to have a different use case and different needs for the wireless infrastructure than my Fortune 10 company, right? So, and having a way to automate these different tasks as well. So if I know I have, most common problems 1, 2, and 3 in a given customer network, and I have a given set of troubleshooting steps that I go through for all these problems. If I can automate out those steps and get the information that I need right away, very quickly, without having to go through all this debugging and sorting through all this logging, that's incredibly powerful, right? I think the solution that can really enable this is APIs. And so when I say APIs, how many people in here use APIs as part of their day-to-day workflow? A couple, a few, you know? When I say APIs, I imagine most people see this big block of text. They think complexity, they think programming languages, they think, I don't know what to do, I'm gonna ask Jake about it. So really, APIs don't have to be this way. You know, there's a ton of tools that are available to us that allow us to really get more familiar and more comfortable with working with APIs. I use Postman a ton myself just because it's so simple to use and so easy to get familiar with, and then you have tools like Node-RED as well. These are both open source, free to download tools. Definitely recommend getting used to them, trying them out, getting familiar. Let's see if I can transition really quick here. So this is my Postman instance, and let's say, you know, I'm troubleshooting customer A, and I want to go through and I want to grab some network connectivity stats for my wireless clients on this network. And I'll run it and I'll see, okay, I have a DHCP issue that's been seen on the network over a given course of time. And then I might try to see, you know, is it a specific client that's giving me these issues? And I see, okay, it is this client. They had a DHCP problem. It might have been a one-off because they've had a lot of other successful connection attempts. So then maybe I scroll up and I have all these different API calls that are already templated out for me. And I run my API call and it finds my client. I can get all the information that I need about this client, see where it was in the network, what SSID it connected to, the VLAN it was on. And you notice how, you know, this was 3 clicks of a button for me. There's no show commands, there's no, you know, different browser windows sorting through different logs and trying to find an event that correlates to that issue. All, you know, API calls, but Postman actually lets you put these in what they call collections as well. So you can easily script this out and automate it and have it to where maybe I'm warehousing this data and I'm just running these calls every 30 minutes regardless of if there's an issue or not, so I have that data available to me. And I can build out some really cool logic to alert me and maybe kick in some of these API calls automatically. So if I start seeing DHCP issues, go ahead and run these for me so I have the data available to me, and in a snapshot I can see the issues that are occurring and exactly what I need to drill into. Yeah, so shameless plug, this is a direct API call to the Meraki dashboard to get information about a client. It is a demo network. I was just lucky to have that there was an actual connection failure there. So. But there's going to be more than one tool for the job, right? So there's a ton of different solutions that are available. So this is something that my colleagues have built out over at DevNet, where we're using different pieces of Elastic, Beats, Elasticsearch, Kibana. I won't go into a ton of detail for time's sake. But these are all pulling in different analytics about a retail customer that we have. So the wireless connectivity stats, location stats as well. But where it starts to get really interesting and unique is being able to pull in things like point of sales information, pull in user CRM information as well. So now you're starting to tie actual business use cases to the health of the wireless network at the same time. And when I actually take this and check it out here, and this is what that data ends up looking like, right? So I can have a specified time frame, in this case over the course of a week, where I have an average connection success percentage. I have the average amount of over-the-air latency for all my clients. But I also have the sum of total amount. So this is a dollar figure of the amount of money that point of sale system has seen been processed over that same course of time. You might think, well, why do I care about tying money to wireless connectivity? Well, if you think about it, this opens up a lot of use cases on behalf of the customer and adds a lot of value to the services that we can provide as wireless professionals, because now I can start tying a dollar amount to successful, unique client connectivity. And if I can show that, hey, before we upgraded your infrastructure that you really were dragging your feet on, I was trying to really convince you that you needed to go wave 2 and swap out the 11N, now I can see that there's $45 tied to each successful connection, and our successful connections are at 90% rather than 60% before we swapped out the infrastructure. The troubleshooting use case of this would be, let's say I'm in a furniture store and I'm thinking about buying this really expensive piece of furniture and I've been dwelling on it for 30 minutes and it's like, I just can't make up my mind. And screw it, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna go ahead and buy that piece of furniture. So I call over the sales associate. The associate walks over and they got a tablet and it's got an e-commerce system running on it. It's got a point of sale transaction system running on it. And as they're walking over, that tablet's roaming between different access points. It might have been asleep and then they wake it up and it tries to get a new IP address. It tries to re-authenticate. And so as they walk over, there might be latency in the area as well. And they walk over and the application's timed out. And so now I'm waiting, a couple minutes go by, they can't get the application to pull up. There's some type of wireless issue going on. I don't know what's happening. Well, me, the end user, I was thinking about buying this, but now you're sitting here and you're making me really think about it. I'm gonna go ahead and walk home. You know what, don't worry about it. I'll think about it, I'll come back tomorrow. I'm not gonna come back tomorrow, right? I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna see if I can find it cheaper online from a competitor. And now, because of wireless connectivity issues on that point of sale device, I've cost my company and my customer potentially money, right? So as soon as I leave the store, that sales rep's then gonna open up a help desk ticket and say, you know, wireless professional, help me out here. I was standing over by the staircase, and I walked over somewhere over towards the corner, and we were kind of standing in this general area, and the connectivity, I just couldn't pull up the application. Okay, well, let's try to reproduce it. How often are you able to reproduce these kind of vague issues on site? Not very often, right? So now you're frustrated because you're spending the time to try to find a problem that you don't really see exist, and the sales reps are frustrated because they're trying to get answers to an issue that they know they saw, and you're unable to solve it. So what if we were able to then start tying in location data to this type of information, right? So if I pull in, again, open source tools, easy to spin up and run, source code all available online, and I start pulling in the XY coordinates, the signal strength value that's being seen on my devices. I'll make this bigger as well. Now I can start tying back timestamps to my wireless connectivity and see, okay, the point of sale device at timestamp 12 p.m. on October 5th was having authentication issues or having issues getting an IP address. Rather than base my investigation off of anecdotal data, I can see where exactly at the environment that was occurring at. I can drill in and be more confident about trying to find the resolution to this issue, whether it be co-channel contention, whether it be an actual infrastructure issue upstream that was causing the timeouts on that application. So just to kind of sum it all up, ton of different use cases for wireless today. It's evolved drastically over the last handful of years. It's going to continue to evolve. As wireless professionals, we need to be aware of the tools that are available to us, the solutions that are available to us, so that we can satisfy all these different use cases for our customers and add value to the customer, add value to the end user. All right? Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @WirelessLANPros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter @KeithRParsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.